My first recollection of Candler Park was when I was very, very small. In fact, I don't remember how old I was, but I had a nurse, and we used to go through the woods, which was in front of this house, over to Smith Street, which is now Candler Park Drive. And I can remember seeing them play golf. I didn't know what they were doing at the time, but I remember there was down in the bottom, about 100 yards, there was what we call a green, but it was made out of clay. And I told them that, now that must have been in about 97 or 6, about 95 or 6. I just was little.
Candler Park was not there at that time. There was a pasture there where we'd take the cows and turn them out to pasture.
Candler Park, as such, as I said, was where we used to go in swimming and all. And every year, the colored church that was down on Oakdale would have a big baptizing. They'd have a revival meeting, and they'd baptize about 50, and they'd come down. And if you've never seen a baptized in a creek, you missed a whole lot, because it did a lot of shouting and jumping and muddy the water noise. And
we had a whole lot more territory to play in than they have now. We had a lot of woods around here. Over at where Candler Park is now was all woods. Then I was in the Boy Scouts, and we went on out as far as present Lake Claire area, and all woods, nothing in there, no streets, no anything. In fact, McClendon didn't go all the way through back in those days. Might have been a wagon trail through there. That'd been as much as could have gotten through. In the afternoons, you could hear the children practicing their piano lessons all up and down the street. In fact, all over the community, which you don't ever hear anymore. It's just a thing of the past.
The changes in the early 1900s were very slow. We didn't have a lot of new buildings, new homes.
It was Edgewood, Georgia, had its own post office. It's right up here at the corner, and
that was the hub of the activity. That was the post office.
Then a few years later, it was incorporated into Atlanta.
Of course, later on, this section went into the city of Atlanta in 1907, and we got mail delivery and so-called garbage pickup, and we got water and sewage, electric lights.
Well, we had DeKalb Avenue there, and a double-track streetcar line going to Decatur.
Transportation, of course, new families moved in, and there was no great surge of increase in population. It was a gradual growth.
And we had stores all up and down. In this block is a blacksmith shop up there, and about midway of the block, and grocery stores on each corner.
I've been selling groceries over 45 years on this corner. It was a thriving neighborhood. It had a complete neighborhood. It was just like a small country town downtown Atlanta.
People shopped in the neighborhoods then. They had to. There's no transportation other than a streetcar and a few automobiles.
Then in 1925, the changes came in. The city bought up all the houses that was used for colored people on that street, and made Mary Lynn School.
Saw the park come along, and the golf course, and the school, new school over there being built, and named after my old first grade teacher, Mary Lynn.
She taught me in the first grade in 1901, and she taught school until she was way up in the ripe old age of about 80.
We've always been like a small country town.
When I need anything, I don't care what it is, a roofer,
Thank you very much,
somebody to do
lady.
my yard. And I can go down there and find out anything I want to find out.
The lady needed money for babysitter. We paid it. They can pay us later.
It's kind of a center. You know, a lot of people go in there in the morning and sit all day and talk, retired older folks.
Your people know everybody. They get along fine. If something happens to one of them, they flock in and help them, just like it's out in the country. But we've been right downtown Atlanta all these years. So.
Well, the big change, of course, has been the number of apartments that come in, replacing the old homes. Most of the houses in this section and in the Canal Park section were owners lived there. There were very few rental units. Of course, when the apartments come in, they bring in a good many more people.
Well, the decline was when the older people that lived in here years ago began to pass on and move away. Some of them moved away, and the area went down because of that, and tenants moved in, and some of them have no regard for the property, tear it up. You wouldn't believe how some of the property's gone down here because of that very thing.
I lived here when I was a kid. I lived here when I was about 9 and 10 years old, and it was a bad neighborhood then. It was poor. It was very violent. House I lived in was 3 rooms with the floor falling out in one room and holes in the walls and in the ceilings and rats running through it all the time.
I don't know, it's just people didn't seem to have enough respect, or the kind of respect they should have had for other people's property.
Like where I lived, there was a 13-year-old prostitute living across the street from me. It was a bad neighborhood back then.
I've lived in the neighborhood around 18 years. The houses, you know, itself went down some because probably the people couldn't afford to, you know, buy and keep them up.
I think what happened was a lot of the houses in the places we first started moving into were houses in places that used to have a lot of transients coming through them.
I lived in Canal Park for 10 years, and you meet neighbors off and on. Some stay here a year, 2, 3. They moves away, new moves in. You know them 2, 3, they moves away.
Between 1960 and 1970, the neighborhoods to the south had moved from almost 100% white to 100% black. Among older residents, that was real fear.
Canal Park was originally Mason Avenue, and then Whitefoot Avenue down there is original name, now Oakdale up to the railroad here. The old original names are still on the south side of the railroad, and it's all black on that side of the railroad.
It just started deteriorating, and then all the businesses in the Little Five Point area moved out, and now we don't have anything here.
Well, it's been a gradual change. It's been over the last 10 years that there's been a big change. Well, we had barber shops, and we had beauty shops, and dry cleaners, and there's 2 grocers all the time. I was another one all along when I was here.
This became the neighborhood that a lot of the people who were hippies in the late 60s started moving to when the hippie area got weird. A lot of the original hippies that were art students and college students wanted to get away from that mess that happened down there. And this is one of the areas they moved to. A lot of the reason for that was because the rents were low.
And then the riffraff started moving in. I ain't saying who the riffraff is or anything, because they know who it is.
If you're not fenced in, well, they take over, and it's like it was theirs. They just run roughshod over you.
The teenagers around here, they're kind of wild.
There are certain streets around here in this neighborhood that certainly lack in visual appeal.
15 years ago, it was safer and more beautified than it is today.
You end up with a lot of ugliness. And, you know, that was part of what set all these neighborhoods up for the rents to be real cheap, for the young college students to move in, for the hippies to move in.
For a while we had a decline because we had homeowners mostly in the years past. Then they had renters. Now people are buying the houses and moving back. Young people with a lot of vinegar.
I see people, you know, moving in, fixing up old houses.
Well, they're fixing up homes.
I think a lot of those people moved in because of the beautiful old houses, and they wanted to renovate them and make them nice.
Another change in the neighborhood is that they're starting to fix up the shops up on the street on McLendon. I knew we should have bought them a long time ago.
Now, they have all filled back up. We've got different type businesses. We've got artists and glass silk screen and glass blowers and such as that, where we had before. We had a little different operation. We have had to take beer and wine to go with the demands of the people. We waited some time to buy it, but it has been worked out to be a good part of the business.
Even the little 5 Points pub, 20 people out of the community went together and bought that place.
Well, the pub started about 3 years ago. This particular location we thought was created a problem for Little 5 Points because it was a rough place.
You know, it used to be you couldn't go through that intersection without fear of running over an indigent laying on the sidewalk or in the street.
And instead of being a place that people avoided, would be a place where people would gather, community people.
You know, well, the Little 5 Points pub is a meeting place now.
I go to the pub and have a drink or dinner or lunch, and it's just exciting because all these people are here because they really want to be here.
They have all kinds of art-type things going on there.
So it becomes an outlet for the creative, the artistic people in the community. And of course, with our profit-sharing plan, some of the money goes back into community projects that would benefit Candler Park as well as the other neighborhoods in the area.
Also, there's a community organization. I can't quite remember the name of it. It's Candler Park Organization that's real involved.
Their objectives were to bring back something which seems to have disappeared, and that is relating to one another as neighbors and not as economic units.
It's all right, but I just really haven't seen no action. They do all this big talking, but no action.
And they fostered that idea that it would be open, that it would be for everyone.
They represent a portion of the neighborhood, but they're not a true representative faction in most cases of the whole neighborhood.
The people I worked with on the Candler Park Committee were lots of young professionals, 30 to 40.
Well, I think they're trying to, you know, help build up the neighborhood and get the people to working together in the neighborhood. I don't think they've had a whole lot of progress.
Here, I don't feel like I'm living in a city. I feel very, very safe and sound in my own little neighborhood. Last year, when I got robbed for the 6th time by the same gang of kids, the cop told me, he says, well, I'm sorry, but we've got one officer between something like Highland and Ponce de Leon and Candler Road in Decatur.
And they were here in, you know, 2 minutes or something and tended to it.
It's hard to get a cop on this street.
Before I moved into this house, a little over 3 years ago, there was more crime then than there is now.
I mean, I lived in Chicago where you didn't even talk to your neighbors, you know. I mean, you know, I was only robbed once in Chicago.
Oh, no, not what it was really when we first came here. Because I could get out, you know, and stroll the children they was babies in. And
this particular neighborhood has been a very low crime area.
Well, there's a lot of crime here.
The reason he went out of business is the dopers stole all of his merchandise. They broke in on him 6 times in 10 weeks, something like that.
And I hear a lot about the crime rate, but I really personally have not been involved in it.
They breaking in houses, stealing stereos and stuff. But really, not too many crime on this street.
We haven't had a lot of problem with crime in this house. Our house got broken into last week by some kids.
Well, I wouldn't want my children to be out after dark, you know, on the streets because there's so many different, maybe people breaking into homes and things like that.
I see more things happening in the park for neighborhood people to be involved in.
I think there's a lot of the younger people that may be smoking pot or things like that. That's the reason I wouldn't want my children in the park. Because I just don't feel like they'd be safe in the park.
I took a friend to the park last year for the Candler Park Festival, and she was just amazed at the kind of diversity that was represented there. And I said, well, this is just the way this neighborhood is.
There's a lot of interest in Candler Park in a mixed community where a lot of different kinds of folks from a lot of different styles can live together.
A lot of renters. There'd be students, older whites and blacks.
They're young professionals, and they're old folks who've been here 40 or 50 years or more.
There's poor people here and black people and ex-hippies and practicing hippies and college students and gays moving in. There's not that prejudice that they'd find out in the suburbs.
About the homosexuals and things like that. Now, I wouldn't want my children in the park, you know, because my son had something like that to happen to him, so I just really wouldn't want him in the parks.
There's every age group. There's every sexual preference. I mean, there's everything.
You're having more single persons and also gay couples buying in.
Now around here, women's and women's living together, men's and men's.
In looking back over the past 3.5 years of real estate in Candler Park, there was a time, say, 3 years to about 2 years ago, when a lot of families would move in.
We don't have as many children in here now. We have some, not many.
I would say more than 50% of the people that are moving into a neighborhood such as this, here specifically in Candler Park, are young families.
There's hardly no young families live around here.
The family unit, that's what a neighborhood is to me. It's families. And if you've got a bunch of single adults and a bunch of couples, you haven't got any families.
The people that are moving in now, since the prices and the rents have doubled or tripled or quadrupled, are primarily young professionals. They have to be to qualify for the houses.
You know, the whole process of trying to create the sort of community we want also has the effect then of making it more desirable and therefore more saleable.
I think right now it is not quite as affordable as it was, say, a few years ago. Things have changed a lot.
Prices have gone up by 4 times what the houses sold for back in 1977.
Well, property values have gone crazy.
Prices going up on old houses that's really worn down, really.
People got into a bidding situation over a house, and a house would sell for sometimes several thousand more than we had priced it at.
And it led me to believe that if I ever wanted to put this on the market, my God, I could make a killing.
What we're doing is it's getting priced out of the range of young college students, of poor people, of people just struggling to get started with their careers.
Some of the people who have always rented and wanted to just rent in this community, particularly the artists, don't have a lot of money.
With the low rents, you know, it got set up for people to start moving in now. I don't know what's happening to some of the poor people.
I think they're basically getting bumped on to other areas.
And that's really kicked in the black people's out of the neighborhood.
Particularly the older members of the community are dying or being displaced, really. They're seeing, they're succumbing to the temptation to make the money. They think they can
sell off and walk away from a closing table with, say, $20, $30, $40, or $50,000 cash.
They need some security.
Us older people who already raised our families, it's hard for us to have the enthusiasm they have.
I'm afraid black people are moving out, and I don't like that because I really like living in a mixed neighborhood.
They moved from here across the track because of the mortgage.
The blacks say that they don't want to be the only black people in the area, and I think they feel uncomfortable living in with the young professional whites.
But the black people, well, just like go over across the track, live in a cheaper place.
Like I walked up to the store last week, and as I walked up to Little 5 Points, and as I was walking up there, I counted the number of houses that looked like they belonged to poor people. And it looked like only about 1 in 4 or 1 in 5, which really changed just from like 5 years ago where it used to be every other house or just about every house.
Most of the neighbors in the neighborhood have constantly upgraded their particular properties.
People are taking an enormous amount of pride in the neighborhood.
Either the houses have been bought by a contractor and fixed up already, and then you buy it at the price, you know, marked up for all the repairs they've done. You can find houses that you need to be fixed up, but mostly they're already very expensive.
Every one of us, all of us in the neighborhood have agreed that property values have gone up on a very steady basis.
But over the last 3 years, there's been a lot of speculation in real estate.
And then this eliminates lower income people.
They're being displaced because the houses they are renting or the apartments they're renting are being sold out from under them, and a young speculator is moving in.
There was a time when you could buy a house for $15 and sell it 2-3 months later, just swept out for $25,000, so there was a lot of easy money.
A company buys a house for say $25,000, and less than a year later they put improvements on it which don't really expand the house or do anything to make it other than just make it prettier. Then they turn around and they charge $45,000 or $50,000 for that house.
And in the realty company, the only thing that's interesting is the money, really.
They're opposed to real estate agents because they single us out, unfortunately, as a scapegoat of the quote, unhealthy change or the rise of prices, the making of in-town neighborhoods the new white suburbia. And we're not. We're just really a function of the market.
What's happening now to change has been that there's more and more emphasis on this community as an investment, and more emphasis on material values, and less, as I see it, particularly the new people coming in, less sensitivity to the human values here.
We're trying to set an example. If this area looks good, it's going to make those people feel bad in the respect that their property values are not going to go up.
There's a strong tendency for a community to become homogenous, to become for people to be very much like each other.
Well, I think the most important thing right now is to see that everybody maintains their property as it is now and upgrade the thing in their own time, because under the circumstances, obviously the property values are going to go up even higher.
As prices have pretty much risen to their maximum level, I feel, and they've stabilized.
I think that we need to have some community-controlled housing that provides an alternative for people of more modest means in order to preserve the mix.
There needs to be somebody concerned with the neighborhood, you know, not with just selling houses for a premium or what these houses are worth or anything like that. It's the essence of the neighborhood.
He started saying how he thought that real estate agents were driving up the prices and whatnot, and what the area needed in Candler Park was some kind of a cooperative, not-for-profit selling service.
Realistically, unless if we do something of that sort, community-owned housing, that it just won't happen.
And I countered with the statement that, okay, you live on a street where houses are now selling for $40,000 to $50,000. Would you sell your house without using a real estate agent for $35,000? And he immediately changed the subject.
Eventually, they're probably going to sell it, and they want to get the most out of it.
I don't want to see this happen, but I think probably what will happen you won't continue to see the economic mix that we've got right now. And I think that's too bad, because it's one of the reasons I like it.
Well, it could be a mixed neighborhood. This is a mixed neighborhood. It would be nice, but it wouldn't be. Won't too many black people live around here. I think there will always be white people living around here.
We are making the neighborhood change, and people inherently are resistant to change. It's a historical fact. And we're singled out as the people that frequently, we're the bad guys.
They don't know who else to point at.
And it's just change. It's life. The neighborhoods are dynamic in nature. Nothing stays the same.
Well, in the past couple of years, it's got worse. than what it was.
People that are a little bit more modern, or people that are kind of, they're saying this is going to be the new village area down here.
Charm, a touch of the past, something that I don't think will ever be duplicated again. That's why I want to maintain this as it is and improve upon it as time goes on.
It's hard to keep up with it, especially if you've not got a permanent job. If you're just working off and on, it's kind of hard to keep up with.
What we envisioned always is a small town, a neighborhood, which was something that we lost for a while, I think, 50s and 60s. And we do have it now, but it's being threatened.
Maybe this sounds far-fetched, but in the long run, that we can develop our own sources of power and fuel and so on in the community.
It sort of forces us to become kind of like gypsies until we can find a place that we can live within our means at.
And it gives the feeling to me of the left bank.
It's been a kind of family community deal.
I've been living in this house since 1918, and I was born next door in 1894. The Canler Park section is one of the best in the city of Atlanta, in my opinion. Having been here a number of years, I've had lots of fond memories.
Well, it's still a good community and a nice community to be in, but it's not what it was when I came up.